I mean, I would think
I agree.
if you want to have productive enrollment growth, why would you want to limit your flagship college from growing in this planned model? It goes from 45% of the district's enrollment to a third. You would rather expand the enrollment but not redistribute it in such a way. That's all my only point, Mike.
President Chong,
Yeah,
I think earlier, though, we talked about the fact that we have a constrained growth.
Funding.
We have a constrained growth. It's not a logical growth. The formula, as far as I'm concerned, is not rational. It's not logical. It's funded on on an emotional basis at the state level. We say one thing, that community colleges in the state of California will serve anybody and everybody who can benefit, but that's not true. That's absolutely not true, and because we aren't provided the funding anywhere in the state of California. It's not just the Peralta system. And so what I hear the speakers talk about is trying to optimize what we're going to get from the state among the 4 colleges. Okay, that's what I hear. That's what I hear. We have some speakers from the public or the. Well, let me finish here. I just want to recognize that we're not ignoring them. Once the trustees have finished their questions, we'll then call on those that have put in speaker slips. Dr. Riley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just briefly, just to go back to the question that President of Laney College raised, there's 2 items. You're saying in 13 years, we're going to growth will be 45,000 full-time students? No,
It's a duplicated head count.
Head count, 45,000.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, and we're saying that 9.5 of our students currently, that's their average load. So we need to increase that load to 13 to 14 credits. Is that what we're saying?
Well, increase it. I don't think that a very small increase in unit load will translate to a lot more FTES. But yes.
Okay, I think everybody's kind of raised this issue. I think we need to really look at this closely, because 45,000 students, and we have currently how many?
30. It's about 30 and change, yeah.
Yeah, and in 1970 we probably had 24. So
that's right.
And that's almost 35 years ago. Or more.
That's right.
And now we're saying in 13 years we're going to go from this number to 45. I would just like to see that played out, because it's probably what you said could be true. I just need to see it.
Yeah, I'll be back in 14 years, okay?
Well, we want to see it before that.
I know, of course.
Thank you. Thank you.
Trustee Guillen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I apologize to my colleagues for being late. I have work responsibilities, as we all do. But, I guess I just scanned through the information real quick, and I wasn't here for the presentation that was given. But intuitively, there's some things that just don't make sense to me. I live here in Oakland. I see a lot of the development, all the condos, all the growth going in the area that is directly near the downtown area. Jack London got downtown. There's a lot of that growth happening. And Oakland has sort of been in a very much friendly environment for growth purposes. And I see that contrasting with the city of Alameda, for example, that has historically had sort of slow growth policies. And I see the 2.8% that's being projected out of College Alameda versus the 1.5 for Laney. And I understand that this information was based on the McIntyre report. Is that correct?
Yes.
I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit more about, and if you already did, a little bit more about the methodology that went into calculating those numbers, those enrollment growth numbers.
I should probably deal with this because the buck stops right here. You got the guy that did the calc. And I think you probably know that from the past, from with me. First of all, remember, math is a unique experience, and it depends upon a couple of numbers. When you take 1.5% of 14,000 versus 2-point-something% of 5,000, you can see, if we're talking real numbers or pure numbers, there's a significant difference also. Now, one of the problems, other than talking about what we've already talked about, and I don't want to repeat myself in terms of trying to balance and create a degree of equity and self-reliance here, the other thing is just pure space needs. And if you saw the diagram that Dan put up earlier where you showed the service areas of the colleges and the overlap, this district has the greatest overlap that I've ever seen in a community college district in California based on the proximity to higher education services. Generally, your circles will intersect maybe 20% on a multi-college district. Even the LA model is like that. But as you come into this one, you can take a look, for example, if you look at the Alameda model versus the Berkeley model versus the modeling for Laney, they're almost, they look like a Venn diagram if you were ever teaching mathematics. They just all overlap. And my concern in addressing what Trustee Guillen is saying is, yes, we have a growth in the greater downtown Oakland area. I think with a good enrollment management program and where you position your courses and the attractiveness of those courses in terms of scheduling and how you put your partnerships together with business and industry, you can direct that enrollment. That's the strategy that went into my thinking of why I wanted Laney to grow. But it was growing from a bigger number to start out with. Berkeley is the new kid on the block, and they had to grow aggressively to get them to equity. Merritt and Alameda accordingly were in between. That's how I did it.
Just, Mr. President, another comment. When looking at this information, this is a tool that helps us plan and figure out where we want to be, where we want to go. It's not. Let me make sure that we shouldn't translate this information to say that on a percentage basis, we should allocate resources on this sort of level. Is that am I correct in
Absolutely.
that statement? Okay. So we shouldn't walk away from this meeting thinking that based on the growth where the numbers are going to be, that's some sort of proxy for how other resources should be allocated. We should take it in within context of what the rest of the facilities needs here. Is that correct? Is that an accurate statement?
That's an accurate statement. I would suggest is take it when the opportunity presents to try to go in this direction. For example, if you were approached by an industry here in the greater Oakland, Alameda area, I don't even know where it is physically, but if you had to create a new program that we didn't even have today, what college would you place it at? That's the kind of dialogue you should have with your executive leadership and the leadership of your instructional programs and say, gee, there's an opportunity for Alameda. I'll just use that. Yeah, that's a new program. It doesn't drain anything from Laney. It doesn't take anything from Merritt or Berkeley. But, gee, they need to have a little incentive. See, that's the type of dialogue that ought to be occurring. And I hope that's what this plan can serve the framework for.
Mr. President, we do have some speaker cards. I don't know if the trustees have any comments.
Do you have, I'd like to complete the questions from the trustees, then we'll move to...
Okay. It would be helpful for me and I think the rest of the board to have an overview of the evening so we would know whether something was going to be covered at some point later on as we get into it. But I did have one comment about the question that Trustee Guillen just raised, and that is what we're trying to do here is we're trying to make rational projections of where facilities resources should go. We have bond money right now, and we're trying to make a decision about, where should this bond money go? Should we build a new facility here, or should we build a new facility here? And so, presumably, we should be doing that on some basis that is rational. Some of it can be aspirational, I agree. So you could look and say, well, even though this facility doesn't exist right now, we might want it to exist for whatever reasons, maybe for reasons of equity or so forth. But I think that the foundation has to be a rational calculation based on our best projections of where growth will actually be. And frankly, I'm really skeptical about the growth projections on that are projected here. And that's why I want to look and say, well, you did the assessment of McIntyre. You said, we think this is more or less right. And so I want to see harder analysis of that before I personally, at this point, would be willing, ready to say, yes, I'm willing to vote for this facilities master plan. Let's move forward, and then we'll be allocating our dollars based